Hey, this is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and this is Tuesday, November the 6th. This will be our chart lesson for today. There weren't a lot of entries today. There were a couple of fairly good entries, but there were not a lot of entries, and prices moved too much really until around, I guess it didn't really start selling off good till right before lunchtime, and then we spent from lunchtime until 2 o'clock in this mess. And there's just, it's really dangerous trading this. I tell you to stay away from it. I mark the trades that are in there, and I'll explain them in a little bit. So, but there's just not a lot of entries today, and I wouldn't have taken. I didn't take either one of these. I was done trading by then, so I didn't take either one of these. But I'll explain to you why they were acceptable trades if you did take them. Notice that our trend line's right off the first couple of swings of the overnight. I just copied that and drug it up here to the top of the price action. So that gave you your highs, and you can see we broke above that. So this is a trend, excuse me, a trend channel line overshoot, and then we sold off the rest of the day. So, and that's generally what happens when you get an overshoot. You get a reversal or at least a big correction. So somebody made a comment yesterday that they couldn't see the bars really, but make sure that you realize that down in the right hand corner of the little window for YouTube is a little square, and if you click on that, it'll take the video to full page, so you should be able to see it a little better. Because and I'll try to back out a little bit to give you a little more room. I usually try to do that. Sometimes I get caught up in talking about the trades and stuff, and I forget to do that. But the main thing is make sure you look right down here, assuming your screen here is the YouTube video screen. Look down here in the right hand corner, and you'll see a little square somewhere right down here, and it's where the volume and all that is. And if you click on that, it'll take the video to full screen, and then you probably can see better. But if that's not good enough and you're still not able to see the bars real good, let me know, and I'll try to do something else to even make them bigger. But back out first, give you the big picture. You can see there's your first couple of swings of the overnight right there. That gave you the trend line for the day. I just copied that, drug it to the top, and that show you the top of the channel. And you might even say that was the top, but I don't think so, because we turned down and went to the other side from here, and generally you're going to get a touch of the high side before you go back to the low side. So I'm thinking that's it right there, and you can see it was holding right here, and then we broke above it. The market was just really strong this morning, and then we've been selling off ever since. So let's talk about the trades. Let me back out here. We'll talk about the trades. The first trade of the morning was right here. You got a little two-legged pull back to the EMA, a first entry long, second entry long. So that's a second entry long, and guess what? It got exactly enough ticks to get you a scalp and nothing more, and then it continued down. And I may have even made that one in green too, but I didn't, simply because it's a two-legged pull back to the EMA and then there's a second entry long off the low. It's a pretty good setup when we've been coming off the EMA most of the overnight. We've been trending up. The trend's definitely up. This was a worthwhile trade, and again, it's very few of them that fail, and you can see that it got just enough to get you your 4 ticks. You need 1 tick to get in, then it moves 4 ticks, and you need that. So that's 5 ticks, and you need that 6th tick to be guaranteed. Sometimes you'll get out with on a limit order without it ticking through, but most of the time you won't. So you generally need 6 ticks, and when that broke up there's just enough ticks to get out. So good trade. Now coming back down, I circled this one in green, and the reason is because it's a counter trend trade, and we're not really coming off the trend channel. We're still above the EMA, but let me show you why. There's a double top here, and there's this little trap here, and prices came down. So if you went short right there, you had to be thinking we need to come back down and test this trend line since we're coming off the high side. And there's no guarantees that that's going to happen though. So it's a little risky. It's a lot more aggressive trade, but it fits the rules. And if you saw it and took it, it was probably, so that's where I marked it in green. I don't recommend you taking that trade because, what if if you'd taken one here? Of course, we're coming off the trend line now, so it's a little bit different. So anyway, and this ought to be a little bigger here because this is encompassing two trades. We'll get there in a minute. But anyway, if you'd have gone short up in here, you'd have got burned. Of course, there's your one, but we hadn't made it to the trend line yet, and this one was really tempting. I actually put my order there and then canceled it. I said, no, I know better, and I waited, and then I was going to go short right here. But you see, that one never triggered, and this was the first. Then we had this little 2-bar matching high. I actually put a limit order there. It didn't get filled, and so when this bar finished, I thought, we're way overdue. We've broken outside the trend channel. We're probably going to pull back. And so I went short right there, and it worked out really well. I was a little nervous when we went into this stuff right here, but I held on, and I gave it, just like yesterday, I gave it another tick or two on my runners, and I was able to get a little more. I actually exited right in here when we got into this mess right here. And it's a good thing I did. I really thought we'd probably come on down here, but notice that it took a little while once we broke this little trend right here to come back and do the retest. And so probably would have paid off to hang on, but I didn't do that. And, but there's other entries here. But I was done then, and I quit for the day. This was the trade right here that made all the money. But let's come back and finish talking. So anyway, that's an aggressive, very aggressive trade. It's counter trend. So I marked it in green, but I felt it was worth talking about in case you see it. But the fact that prices ticked up there and made a double top, only one tick above that high, so that's really a double top all the way across there too. So it's a double top off a broader double top. So this is 2 retests of this high right here that failed. So you got to be thinking we're coming back down here to test these lows and probably test the trend line. And there was enough room to get out to do that. So if you took that trade, great. If you didn't, I don't recommend it anyway. That's why I marked it in green. So this was a really good trade right here. Any runners were safe right here. The entry was 1 tick. This is the first real break of that trend line, and that may not even be good enough to be considered a break. But anyway, you got this is a nice reversal bar. Prices ticked lower first, turned and closed on their high. You want to go long 1 tick above that, or if you want to be, if you want to try to get a better, more entry, you could drop a limit order a tick or two back. But a lot of times you'll miss these trades doing that because like right here, it took off. It ticked back enough to get you in for 1 tick, but if you tried to get any more, you got burned and you might get left. So it's better just to use your stop entry on this. And if you did, any runners were safe on this one, and you could have ridden this all the way to the top. This was a great entry, but you had another great entry right here. This one was a little more questionable, but let me tell you why it was a good trade. You notice let me back out here, make sure everybody can see this. But notice all those, let me get this out of the way. Notice all these overlapping bars right here, but notice we ticked 1 tick lower right at the trend line, turned up, and so you could have even gone long right there. Notice there's 1 leg down. That's a little move back up, and that's a 2nd leg down. It's really a little 2-legged move in there. You could have gone long above this little small doji because there's a trap there, but it's better to wait on a trend bar in your direction. You finally got one right here. So this is the best place to go long, right above this bar. It took a few minutes to get going, but that's why I'm saying, it was questionable. You could have entered here, but this was the better entry. And notice what happens if you waited and went long right here. It never looked up. It never checked back. And once again, you got a runner going, and you can ride this all the way to the top. And if you didn't get shaken out right here, and you had to be considering the fact, if you had the trend channel, that we didn't touch it yet, that we might trap people and go higher right here. And that's exactly what we did. And look how much higher we went. And the next obvious place to exit would be here, but it never triggered. This would have been the first bar that broke lower after we touched the trend channel line that would have taken you out, and that's where you want to exit. So that's what I generally do when we get to my, if I don't just get exit directly off my target, what I'll do is exit, I'll start moving my stop up. But let me show you this. When you see a two-legged correction like this, you got to be thinking that this first part is the first leg. So you got to be thinking that's leg one, and then we get that two-legged correction. So where's our target going to be? It's way up here, and that's right in there. So that's, you know, that, and you can see we started finding resistance in there, but we went a lot higher. And then notice it comes back and it finds congestion right in that same location right there. And so that's what I was looking for on this next leg up, for it to go somewhere at least right in here. But man, we got a lot more, and that was great. Sometimes you get lucky like that, sometimes you don't. But entering either one of those is fine. They both meet our criteria. They're bouncing right off the trend line. There's a trap right here, and this was really the best entry right here. Like I said, and any runners were safe on this trade or this trade. And I believe if you entered above the red one, your runners were good too. 1850. No runners off that one. But you could have re-entered right there. So I actually entered down here and I added on right here, but I did not enter right here because I was already, you know, it's not the perfect setup, but it's a good setup. This is the more, what I would call a more perfect setup. So, but I was long right here. My runners were easily safe. I added on again here, another load, and so nice, easy moving up through there, and that was the way to do it. Now notice that I marked this one up here at the high green, and the reason is because it's a counter trend trade on a really strong trend that's going up, and so strong that it overshot. But generally, once you get an overshot of the trend channel, you're going to get a correction pretty quickly. You just need a good setup, and that's not necessarily a good setup either, but this is an aggressive move. But we got two overlapping bars. Look how long we've been away from the EMA all that time, and it's, you know, like I said, it's an aggressive move, and you need to be ready to exit quickly because this thing could break higher and go just as high all over. But I really was hoping I could get a limit order filled there, and I couldn't get it filled, and otherwise my break-even stop would have been way up here instead of down here. But I actually gave this another tick or two as room, kind of like I did yesterday. And you know, do you want to do that? If you really think you've caught the top, you do, and you just need to be prepared if you're wrong that you're going to lose, you know, you're going to give some of your profits back off your scalp. But you know, sometimes it's worth doing that, because look, if you did, you could have ridden this from the 27, 28 area all the way down to the, you know, the 22 area or so before you would have, you know, you got a double bottom and probably want to exit right there. And so that's worth doing. And notice too, you got, there's leg one, and then there's leg two. And so we've probably bottomed now, and that's a two-legged correction. And you got a couple of legs in here too. So hopefully you noticed that as well. But let me show you this setup here. I marked these two trades. I was done trading by now. I didn't take either one of these, but they're good trades, and I want to show them to you. I want to talk about this first. There was actually a trap right here, and a nice, I almost took this trade right here. I almost went short right here, and I didn't, because look at all this overlap and all this. And the reason I like this one was because we have this is just a minor trend line, a little temporary trend line, but it's still valid, and you still get the same kind of deal. You get a break, and then you get a retest. And I really assumed that we were going to at least come back to this trend line. But because this ended as a doji 2 and it didn't close on its very bottom, And the fact that we had all these overlap, and the fact a lot of times a retest on a little move like this will only be a retest of the lows. And that's what happened there. So I'm glad I dodged that trade, because I would have got trapped and probably would have taken my stop out, and I would have given back some money today, but I didn't. So anyway, I meant to circle that just to remind me to talk about it. But I could see people being eager to want to enter right there, because I was eager to enter right there, but it's just not a real good setup. That's the first. Keep this in mind. Actually, we did get below the EMA here, but that's the first time we got below the EMA since 9:30 this morning. So 9:30 to, that's 2 hours. When you go that long with that breaking below the EMA, the odds are you're going to make another push higher. And you can see they tried it, but it was just too weak. And really, we were still working down back towards the trend channel line. Now we've got a real break of the trend line, a double bottom, a reversal type pattern, and you can see we were headed up at the close right there. So, but let me talk about these two trades. Remember, this was the first break of the trend line. Now this is a better reversal bar right here. You can see that bar right there. We broke higher. There's a big stem. It closed on its very, very low. And this one's similar, but notice prices never broke below there. And this is a better one. And so that was a pretty good place to go short. And you might have gotten shaken out of it, but as long as you had your stop 1 or 2 ticks above that little double top, you survived, and you could have ridden this all the way down. So that was that trade was almost worth taking, because I still was looking for prices to come down here. And if I'd have been trading, I feel certain I would have taken that trade. And then you got another one here, and this one's even better, because now you got a broader double top, and you got another little negative bar right there. It is a doji, so it's not as pretty a setup as that one, but because it's a double top and we still hadn't got down and there's enough room, it was worth taking. Now, you don't know that it's going to come way down here, but you figure it's going to come down, at least test this support area, test this support line of the trend line, and there's plenty of room to scalp out there. But what will happen a lot of times, and actually the more I think about this, I'm going to change that one to green, because a lot of times what will happen in a really strong trend, when you get a correction like this, it won't go lower. It'll just kind of work in a trading range over to the trend line, and then it'll finally touch it, and then it'll take off for a new trend again. And that could have happened right there, since we were having so much trouble selling off. But you can see they eventually sold it off. The reason I still like these two is because we had a trend channel line overshoot over here. And generally, when you get an overshoot and you start to get correction like that, you're usually going to get a break of the trend line rather than it bouncing off that trend line again. And you can see that's what happened here. We actually broke the trend line. So that was another reason that I liked those two trades. And that was another reason I almost got sucked into that trade right there, because I was really looking for this thing to break the trend line and us finally get a break, a strong break of it. So hopefully that makes sense. And you can see there just were not a lot of entries today, but these two entries right here were key entries. These are the ones you got to catch. And if you miss these on a day like this, you don't get a chance to enter, because it's dangerous. This is actually a little breakout pullback almost, but it's not a very good one. But this thing was just strong right up through here. There was actually some news today, the jobs news, and it came out right around 10 o'clock. So you can see it was right in here, right where the rally started. And that's something I'm always telling people. You can't pay much attention to the news, but let me show you this. What are the odds that the news would come out just as prices are bouncing off the trend line? The trend line was set at from yesterday afternoon to, well, let's see what time that is. That's at 2:42 a.m. So the trend line was set from yesterday afternoon's low to, and then the 2:42 a.m. low, my time, which is Central Standard Time. So that's when that trend line was set. Now, how could anybody possibly know that the news was going to come out right when prices were bouncing off this trend line. There's no possible way. So I guess what I'm saying is people think the market is random, and it is to a degree, but it's not as random as people think it is. Because if you find these lines every day, you can pretty much know where the entries are coming and why you want to enter there. So you didn't need the news to tell you to enter here. You didn't need it at all. You knew that that was a double touch of that trend line that held, and you had the right kind of bar to go long above. And look at that move up off the news. And so it doesn't really matter what the news is. You just need to be aware that and I'm sure the news actually did create the momentum that took this higher, and probably what took it above the trend channel line. But we were going to the top of this trend channel line no matter what. I'm almost certain, based on the way I know prices work. So a lot of people call it market geometry or whatever. The measured moves, the twos, everything moves in twos, and you can measure it. But there's something to that. I'm just telling you, and call me crazy if you want, but there's more to it than what meets the eye, and I don't have the explanation for it. But just be aware of that, and you'll see that over and over and over, that it just, the news comes out, and yeah, it affects the market, but this market, that's where you expected it to bounce before the news ever got there. So, and you just, that just doesn't happen by accident. There's something going on there. The market is not as random as people really think it is, and the patterns are fairly consistent. And what you want to be looking for are look what happens whenever you get a double top. Even in an uptrend, you get a sell-off. You get a double top, you get a sell-off. You get a double bottom and a break below it, then you get a huge move up. You get a little double bottom, you break below it, and then you get a move up. And here there's your little overlap. Look at all those. Let me back out here. Look at all those overlapping bars. And we know the only way we can enter there is to wait on prices to break out and fail in reverse, and then we can enter. So there was a nice trade right there when prices broke lower out of this. Look at those matching lows, those matching highs. We broke lower right there, but no entry. We're still lower, no entry. But finally we break a couple of ticks lower, and then suddenly it reverses, closes on its high. When you see that, you better jump in. Don't be scared of that trade. Yeah, it could fail, but the odds are you got the trap traders now, and look at that thing run to the high again. And you really got the same thing right here. You got this little double bottom, and it broke below it, and then all of a sudden look at that stem and closes it on its high, and those are easy scalps. And a lot of times that's when you catch these kind of moves like these right here or this one right here. And so when you see a double top or a double bottom, especially if it's against the trend, in other words, you see a double bottom in an uptrend, and you suddenly get a break below it and then a bar like that, you better be thinking I'm going long, especially if there hadn't been a trend line. If you got a for sure trend channel like this and you haven't had a break yet. So, but anyway, I'm rambling. I'm getting into, but these are all important things that I like to share with people. And the biggest thing I can tell you is when you get a trend like today, don't counter trend trade it. You got to be patient and wait on the pullbacks that are sure to probably come. But don't be, be careful if you need to make sure you got your channel right. And, I got some emails from some people, and they had, they're trying to draw their trend line up here, starting way up here and things like that. And you probably could find a trend line right here that works, but this is your trend line. It's usually off the first two swings of the overnight, and you can see that was definitely it. We overshot it, and then we had the sell-off. We had a big two-legged correction with a nice couple of leg correction in the middle, and it's pretty much an equal move, and now we're headed higher. So it doesn't get any better than that. That's exactly what we expect to see. So I'm going to wrap it up. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and